Is that your friend, sister?
Thank you so much. I can't see, so it's a big right. Thank you so much, Fred, and all of you that have helped me so much. I'm only here because of my organization that's back there and because of these amazing people that encouraged me. So I took way longer to get to this position than I should have, but I'm really happy that I'm here. And I'm just going to start by reading a text that I sent that kind of conveys how I feel about the last couple years of my ACing journey. This was sent to a little bit ago to the team coordinator that I met that recruited me. So, Jeff, thanks for introducing me to this business. It's changed my family's lives on so many levels. I'm such a better mom because I'm happy instead of stressed. I have so much more to give people for the same reason. So, most of you don't know my story, but like he said, I was in pharmaceuticals. I was making well over 6 figures, and that always came really easy to me. Sales and all that stuff had always come really easy to me. But I had a 15-year career, and it was really, really fun, and I loved it. But the last couple of years, it became less flexible, and I was never, ever, ever with these guys. These are my Y up here, -1. I have a little guy that he'll be here for my RV promotion, but confusion. He ended up at a basketball game he wasn't supposed to be at, so I didn't know where to bring him. So anyway, so I met him on an airplane. I was coming back from one of our sales meetings, and it was spring break, and I had promised him, I never saw him. I was working 60-hour weeks, and I never saw them, and I promised him we'd go to our cabin over spring break. And 2 weeks before spring break, my company told me I was lucky to have a job and that we had a sales meeting over spring break. And so I was devastated. And at the time, we were drowning in my little guy that's not here. He had been diagnosed with autism, and we had well over $300,000 worth of autism debt, and we were just sinking. And anyway, it was just a really hard time for me. And I sat next to a guy on an airplane that he asked me what I did, and I told him. And I asked him what he did, and he said he brokers energy and telecom. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, who do you pay your cell phone bill to? And I said, AT&T. And he said, I go, what does that mean? He goes, I just found out how to be the person that pays on your bill, or gets paid on your bill. And I was like, what? And so he told me a little bit more about it, and he tried to push it off, and I was like, no, you have to tell me right now. This is a 2.5-hour flight. And he never puts that on the spot, ever. He won't. And I was like, no, really, you have to tell me now. It's a 2.5-hour flight. He's like, no, we'll get back. And so finally, I wish he was here. He was going to be here, but he's in California. But he finally was like, okay. And so he gave me the presentation, and by the time, before I saw the little pyramid thing on the sheet, I had known too much. Because had I seen that first, I wouldn't have had the conversation. But at that point, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I pay all these bills. So he explained it to me, and I was like, wow, that makes sense. And he said, if you want to do this, I'll be your free employee. And I said, promise? And he said, yeah. And so I did it, and he was. And 7 months later, I was able to quit and go full-time. I hadn't totally replaced my income, but I knew that I was on a path that I could be excited about. So anyway, so that's my story. Just to go back, so Sunday nights, I had the worst pit in my stomach. For like 13 of the 15 years, I was loving it, and I was super happy. But it got to the point where my husband and I on Sunday nights would talk about who hated their job more and whose life sucked more. And we both had really good jobs, but we still weren't even coming close to being able to pay off the debt that we had incurred because of our son and his therapy. So anyway, Jess was definitely an answer to my prayer. I was desperately praying for something. There was nothing that I could make even close to what I was making, and it wasn't even enough. So he was definitely an answer to my prayers. And so, again, like I said, these are my why, and I'm just going to quickly say a little bit about why they've been able to help me. So first of all, my husband, his name's Rob, and he's incredibly, incredibly successful. We are not necessarily on the same page about this company, but because of him, well, not his company, the industry. And but he respects what I do, and I appreciate it. And if it wasn't for him, then I wouldn't be able to do what I do. It's only because he works really hard, really, really hard, and is very successful that I'm able to do what I do, and which is make myself, I'm really happy every day. So thank you. And just real quick to tell you something about him. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the Stevie Awards. The American Business Association gives out Stevie Awards. It's a big deal. Fortune 500 companies. It's a really, really, really big deal. And for the last 3 years, he's won back-to-back Best Sales Director of the Year. And this is people across the country and world. Best Sales Director of the Year, Best Led Sales Team, Best Sales Process that he created. And there's more that I can't think of, but anyway, so he's amazing because of that. And so this is my version of that. And actually right now he's up for Best Sales Director in the world. Is it or international? Yeah. So he was nominated by Salesforce, so super proud of him. So, and then this is Gentry. And first of all, I told Gentry I was going to have her just quickly say what's different about me since I've joined ACN, because I've heard her tell us.
Well, she just was sad all the time. And, when she was with us, she was just sad and she didn't want to do anything. But, literally the day that she quit her job and started doing ACN, she, smiles more, she laughs all the time, she's just so much happier.
I was valedictorian, I had been a student body officer, I'd done really, really well in life. Like I said, sales had been really easy, but the last couple of years in pharmaceutical kicked my butt, and I lost my personality. So anyway, so really quickly, so Gentry, her dream is to be an actress and an autism therapist. And because of ACN, I tell my kids that they can do anything that they want to do. And that's actually what helped me plant my flag. I was super excited about ACN, but then I went to a regional, I think it was the month after I joined, and Jennifer Dowd spoke, and she showed a slide of all the pictures of what her kids and the mission trips and all the travel and everything that they've done together. And she said her best part of ACN was that her kids knew that they could go for their dreams and get them if they worked hard enough. And to me, that was the day I said, you know what, I have given up on my dreams. I had totally given up on everything. And that day I said, you know what, I'm going home and I'm telling my kids that I'll never quit this. I will never quit this. And I knew if I did that I couldn't ever. So I went home and promised them that I would never quit. So that's how I planted my flag. So this is Baylor, and Baylor he left a football camp that he got for Christmas, that John Beck football camp, and his dream is to be a football quarterback, which he will be. And him and Rob left early, which was a big sacrifice, so they could make it through snowstorms to come here, so I appreciate it. Baylor is going to be an NFL football player, and if that doesn't work out, he says he's going to be the first clean white rapper. He really likes Eminem. Yeah, he's going to be the clean version of Eminem. So, and just quickly with Baylor, just right before I started ACN, one night he was talking about he wanted to be an NFL quarterback. And I said, and he's brilliant. I mean, we've had him tested, and he truly is genius IQ. He's brilliant. He has so many skills. And I remember the week before he said, I want to be an NFL player. And I was like, okay, Baylor, you're really smart. Let's do the math. What are the chances of you being able to make it? Let's do the math. Let's run the statistics of people. And you have all these brains, and you can do anything you want. And let's be realistic about what you can do and what you should start with. And a week after I joined ACN, after I heard her turn down, I was like, I cannot believe that I was that person. And so I went home and I apologized to him, and I said, I promise you will go to every camp, you will do every single thing that you can to be an NFL quarterback. So you will definitely get everything. If that's what, you will definitely have every opportunity to do that. That's what he wants to do. This is Slade. Slade is my sweet boy that is the kindest person that on my worst days when I'm mad and grumpy tells me that I'm the nicest mom ever and that I'm pretty. And he's so sweet. And Slade wants to be a professional football player too. And he's excited. He's watched his big brother, and Slade won the state championship on his first year this year. So really excited for Slade. He's awesome. And then lastly, the little guy that's not here, his name's Crew, and he's the biggest challenge that God's given us, and he's definitely the greatest challenge, the greatest blessing that God's blessed our family with. And when he was 2, he was diagnosed with severe autism. They told me that I should apply for public assistance because he'd never speak, and that as he got bigger, we could treat his tantrums with antipsychotics. And it was devastating to me. I cannot even describe the feeling. And my mother-in-law said, when I told her that, she's like, someday you'll look back and see why this happened and why God put this in your path. And I didn't tell her, but I was furious. I couldn't believe that someone could tell me that there would somehow be a bright side to this. And now, several years later, I'm so grateful, and she was so right, and I wouldn't give up anything. The financial hardship, it's kicked our butts in so many ways, but he totally lost his, that was the news too, and because of early intervention, he lost his diagnosis completely on his 5th birthday. He's amazing, he's inspiring. People across the country started hearing his story and calling me, and I have no idea how they even heard it, but they were like, what did you do? Please give us hope. What did you do? And so from that, I started, it's called the Autism Hope Foundation, and I have a support group that I help a doctor run once a month, and it's been the biggest blessing, and it's all because of the little guy that you'll see when I get my RD promotion. And he went from no eye contact and complete, if you took him outside, he would just lay in the street and scream and scratch. It was awful. And now, because of all of the things that we've been able to do through early intervention, that we've been blessed to be able to do, he's going to lead an incredible life, and he'll run companies, I'm certain. He's got the biggest personality, very witty, and he is awesome. And he always talks about, I don't think he knows that he had autism, he always just talks about, when can I go play with the kids that have autism at the support group. So, he's awesome. So, thanks to my parents I saw come in here, I'm really grateful. They are my first customer. So, my first call to them on my way home from signing up was to ask them about if they would be my customer. And I remember my dad, because I started a company, I remember he said, oh, I have Comcast and it's on auto pay. I'd rather pay more. And I was like, and I went home and I was crying, and then I was like, no, this is okay. So the next day I went to their house and I made them look at the little presentation, and they looked and they're like, oh my gosh, of course we'll support you. And they changed everything in their house and everything in our cabin. And I think they've done extra things over time. And so very grateful for them. Grateful for my team that's here, my best friends, and very, very grateful for these guys. And then I have to get